So Mona, before all this traveling with the More Mona accounts and that all that took off, what did life look like for you?
Yeah, so I think that travel has always been at the forefront of my mind, even as a kid. I grew up in a super, super small town, like 4 stoplights. The biggest city was 2 hours away. So I lived in a very like conservative, not a lot of people left type of environment. And even as a kid, when I would watch movies that had, New York, it was based in New York. I was always like fascinated by the big city and wanting to, see something bigger. And I think that as a kid, the concept of New York was the definition of like making it. And so that was like the depiction of what I had, but I had always wanted to travel. And that even was how I decided what I was going to go to college for. And it was kind of always like my main priority as a kid was to travel. The first time I ever went abroad was when I was 17. And the way it was a school trip. So it was like a teacher from my high school and students from my high school all went abroad together. And the way I justified the cost of it to my parents is that I never got braces for my teeth, which is a very American thing. Like a lot of
Yeah.
kids get braces. And I never did. So I was like, well, I never got braces. So you should let me go to Europe. And that's how I justified the cost to my parents. And they said yes. And it was truly like love at first sight. Once I saw that there was a bigger world out there, I knew that that is like something that I wanted to pursue. So I ended up going to college for marketing and international business because I knew that regardless of whatever anything is on this planet, there is a business behind it, whether it's like this microphone or, a mug. Somebody has to sell it to make money. Like business is everywhere. And I knew that I wanted to make money and be able to travel. Even in high school, when people are like, oh, what do you want to do after college? I would always say, I want to get paid to travel. I didn't know what that looked like. In my head, I thought I was going to go to school and get, a job that was going to pay me to move around and travel and stuff like that. I never in my wildest dreams did I think that I could like do it in terms of content, because also content wasn't like, it wasn't where it was then, So when I graduated college, I moved to Seattle, Washington, and I worked in like a tech startup, and kind of similar to you, where I was slapped in the face with reality of a 9 to 5 job. And I literally came home the first day and was like crying because I just knew that that wasn't going to be my future forever, but I didn't know where else to go with it. So, I worked that for a little while, and then I realized that I could actually make more money just like doing my own thing. And so I ended up doing I did Amazon FBA, where you actually sell products on Amazon. But then I also did, because I lived in Seattle, which is the home of Amazon, I did Amazon delivery from my own vehicle. So I don't know if they have that in Europe, but basically like you sign up for this program and it's basically like DoorDash or Uber, but you're delivering Amazon packages out of your own car. And at the time in 2018, I was making more money delivering Amazon packages than I was at my first 9 to 5 job that I acquired my degree. And so it was like kind of the very first time where I realized that like, for me, I found that working in an office was kind of a scam for like, they tell you that you need to go to school. They tell you that you need to do all of these things to be successful. And in terms of monetary income, it just wasn't true for me. So I started to do more gig things that gave me more freedom. So I did the Amazon, and then I also became a nanny. So I was nannying children, and then COVID happened, and COVID was really what led me to travel. And it allowed me to see that like the world can shut down, like things can be different. And it kind of gave me the drive to say, let's do it. Like I knew I always wanted to full-time travel. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how long I was going to be able to do it. But I think that there's always been a level of inconsistency in my life in terms of my daily routine and what that looked like. No day had ever been the same other than the 3 months that I worked a 9 to 5 job. And so, yeah, like it was normal for me to have one day that was a 10-hour day. And then the next day I was off, and I kind of got to pick my own schedule, even though it was within the confines of delivering Amazon packages and nannying children. So Yeah, I was always inconsistent, and I always knew that I wanted to travel. So I think in some senses where I am now, it was inevitable. I just didn't realize at the time before I started making content that it was like that was going to be my thing.
Okay, so when you were doing this whole Amazon thing, was that kind of like your daily routine upon like recent time, and was this kind of like your main gig? And I mean, like, what was it like your dreams and goals back then before travel became such a big part? Did you have like how do you call it, like normal goals like most people have, house and cars and all of that, or was this like your focus even back then?
I think my focus was always to have a level of financial independence so that I got to choose what my life looked like. So I always knew that I wanted to travel. I always knew that I love hanging out with my friends. I love, going out to dinners and being able to pick up the bill. Like I always knew that I wanted financial independence because at the end of the day, if you have financial independence, you're kind of limitless. Money does make the world go round, whether we like it or not. And so I think my focus was, how am I going to do what I want to do, which I knew was travel, and also be financially independent. And so I was always very interested by YouTube, and YouTube was huge back then. We're talking like 2017 to like 2021. That was like the peak of YouTubers, like blowing up and making money and crazy amounts of money. This was like very beginning of TikTok. So I actually started making content on YouTube first, and it never really worked out for me. I've made like 100 episodes on YouTube, and it just like I feel like I could never crack the YouTube code. So content was always kind of like, in terms of post college and like what am I going to do with my life, content was always something that I was striving for, depending on the platform and the era of that it was.
So the algorithm wasn't really your best friend on YouTube.
Well, I think that, yeah, I would agree with that, but I also think I just wasn't good enough at content yet. And I think that the failures that I had on YouTube is kind of what propelled me to be successful on TikTok, because YouTube takes so much time. Every single video that you put out could be 8 to 20 hours of editing, by the time you plan it and all the things. And then when I was able to switch to TikTok, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could make a video in a day, or I could make a video in 10 minutes, that like your trial and error process can be so much faster, because you can just put out more content. So you can almost like test it. You put it out, oh, it didn't perform well, whatever. It only took me 10 minutes, on to the next, versus it being so emotional on YouTube. You like put out an episode, and if 20 hours of your work doesn't go well, it's like very disheartening. So it's all connected. Everything is so connected. But yeah, I didn't find the success I was hoping for on YouTube back in the day, but it led me to where I am now.
If you could do that over again, would you still start out with YouTube and then go TikTok, or would you go direct to TikTok?
I think if TikTok is where it was today, back then, I think I would have naturally been more drawn to TikTok. But given where, content ebbs and flows, the platforms ebb and flow, I think that YouTube is still a dream of mine, but I'm just not to where I can put the time into it at this point. So if I had to go back and the world is where it is now, I would definitely start on TikTok, just because you can get so much better faster. And it's just a different platform. But yeah, at the time, I would have obviously continued with YouTube, because that was the platform at the time.
I understand. I'm thinking about if you look at the world right now, I mean, about since the last maybe like 6 to 7 months, I mean, since 2025 started, the political climate in the world has been troubling, to say at least. And for you traveling the world as an American, how has that been? I mean, do you get a lot from people? Oh, what are you doing here? Has it been dangerous at any time for you when you've been traveling? Has it gotten really close, or has it been like like going to any other country?
I think that less so me being an American, you have to be cautious. I think more so you have to be on your guard traveling as a woman. But when it comes to being online and sharing travel content online, typically anytime everybody that is not an American, when you show things that are you traveling, they think that Americans are stupid. Like that is just like the general consensus online is like you're so dumb because you're an American. But when you're traveling as an American and you meet people in real life, I think you get more of a concept of like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? We're here for you type of vibe. So like the environment that you get online is very, very different than the environment that you get when you're actually meeting people in real life.
Like day and night.
Day and night. Yeah. I think that online it's so easy to just like kind of be a bully, and in person you have more of that like face-to-face compassion. And I think the other thing is like as Americans, like we obviously are painfully aware of our political system and like where we're at in the world. But when you meet people abroad, they could never imagine being in that environment, especially like European countries, you know. They could never imagine having to pay for healthcare or having to pay thousands of dollars to go to the doctor or not being able to afford to go to the doctor. Like, truthfully, I haven't been to the doctor and I probably should because I just can't afford it right now. And that is a crazy thing for like a European to think about. I say European in general. I know that you guys don't like to be grouped together as a continent, but generally speaking, yeah. So I think that when you meet people in person, they have a lot more compassion for like, how are you doing?
What if, like for an example of all the countries you've been to so far, what's the kindest thing you've heard about Americas or compliments? Has there been like any situation that has surprised you like in a really positive way?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised, given the political climate, how happy people are to see that some Americans are traveling. I think a lot of times Americans, I mean, statistically, only 27% of Americans have an active US passport, and only like 10% of Americans leave North America in their entire lifetime. So when you go abroad, I think it shows like, oh, this person, I don't think when you are abroad, you're looped together with like the concept of what the political climate is depicting for Americans, because you are abroad, you are choosing to put yourself in a different environment, and inevitably you're learning when you put yourself in in an external environment. And so I think that you're met with grace because you're almost like the person that made it out, like the person that's willing to see parts of the world that a lot of Americans either cannot or don't want to.
Okay. I'm thinking about this whole travel influencing or travel vlogger thing. It could seem kind of glamorous, but from the outside. But I'm thinking, what's been the most challenging thing about living on the road and sharing it all online, sharing everything online? Has it been like things that you didn't want to really post, but you posted anyway, or a lot of hate comments? How has that been?
There's obviously always going to be a level of vulnerability when you're posting your life online. But I think that I just naturally have always kind of been an open person. So for me, it wasn't necessarily that hard because that's something that I would share with friends or family anyway. But something that was extremely unexpected that I didn't expect was the level of loneliness that you are met with, because obviously I have chosen to put my life online and to give a play-by-play of my every single day. And I had this epiphany one time when I met a friend of a friend, I didn't even know who this person was. I literally didn't even know her name. And she came up to me and started talking to me about my life and the things that I was doing. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot that, strangers know things about me. Like, because a lot of times when you're making so much content, you kind of forget what you've even put out there. And so like she came up to me and asked about something that I did. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot I even shared that. And so I realized that my friends and the people that I care about are getting a play-by-play of every single thing that I'm doing in detail because I'm choosing to share that. And so like friendships almost become very one-sided because they know what you're doing. And so I don't get a play-by-play of their life. And I know this comes with the territory. I just was like I was shocked when I realized that, oh, my friends are following me. They are keeping up with me. I'm not keeping up with them because I don't know their side of the story or what they're doing on a day-to-day. So that was super interesting in terms of like the loneliness that you're met with. But I think it just kind of comes with the territory of choosing to put your life online.
Regarding when you post content about the different places, I'm thinking, has it been like people messaging you or DMing you and saying that's not a true story about that place, you got it all wrong? Has it been anything like that?
Yes.
Yes.
Anytime you have something negative to say about a place, and I like to share my real thoughts about places because I think so many times it's really easy to sit in the position of having a platform and then only showing the amazing things that happen, which there's so much great things that come when you travel, but there are also downsides and there are also times where you're like, that was not for me. And I think that when it comes to like a deeper level, like people want to categorize you because when they can put you in a box, they feel safe. And so there's been a few times where I've shared things about Morocco, for example. It was like one place I've ever been where I felt incredibly unsafe. And I probably would never go back there. That's not for me to say that about my experience. I'm not telling somebody not to go. I'm not telling somebody to go have their own experience and that other people that have gone there have had positive experiences. I'm just saying my experience was very negative. And people don't like that. When your opinion doesn't line up with what they think of a place, they want to fight it. And, it's just like, that's my experience. I'm sorry. I hope that people have better experiences. But it's so easy when you're online to like chirp at someone, for lack of a better term, like, oh, that's not true. But if you were having a face-to-face conversation, or even if you were having a conversation like this, a lot of times the comments are so much more harsh because you're never going to catch somebody in the exact mood that you want them to be in when they watch your content. So you have to be willing to go to kind of get the negative because you can't control the way other people think.
So it's like they have like their perfect image about something, and as soon as you tell them something that could disrupt that, it's all out of war.
Yeah. And I think that it's so much deeper than just like, oh, I don't agree with that or whatever, even I've made a lot of content about Scandinavia and the Nordics. And from an American perspective, from my background, I see that area of the world as kind of the poster child of what it could be. Obviously, every country has their positives, every country has their negatives. But I think that when you look from an American perspective, it's like, you guys up there are top of the line for the happiness index. You're top of the line for education and environmental impact and all of the things that are important. And so anytime I post anything, it's funny because it's like, there's always a paradox. Like anytime I post something positive about Scandinavia and the Nordics, I always get people in the comments being like, yeah, but it's not as good as you might think, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, again, because that's coming from your perspective and like, you can see the negatives because you live it. Right. But like me coming from an American perspective, I'm like, it sounds great to pay higher taxes and guarantee free education and not have, You know, a lot of Americans come out of college with $50,000 to $100,000 in debt. Like that is just a reality for Americans. So when you see the other side of that and be like, oh, there's a way to not do that, that sounds awesome, you know? So it's like you're always going to make someone angry. You're never going to please the world. And honestly, that's how you get good content, because if you can make a comment war in the comments, then your video's popping off and you're doing even better. So any comment is a good comment.
I'm thinking about the people who post these negative comments. Is that usually people from that country, or people from the States, or what? Can you tell who's making those bad comments?
It's hard to say. A lot of them are. It's very possible that some of them are even bots, like they're not even real people. Sometimes they are real people, and you can really tell the people that just want to make a comment because they want to say something provoking. And you can also tell the people that like are genuinely curious and want to have a conversation. And I do my best to respond to almost any comment that I see, especially ones that you can tell are genuinely curious and are asking questions and, you know, want to have a better understanding. I'm always open for an open, understanding conversation. But when it comes to just pure hate or things like that, I definitely delete comments. I definitely report them, and I definitely block them, because it's not only for me, but like my other viewers and my audience that are coming into my comment section. I think I have a personal responsibility to make sure that it's a safe environment. Like if someone's making a blatant racist comment, which people do all the time, I'm going to delete that.
I understand. I'm thinking about when you post both sides of any travel, like the good side and the bad side. Was that something you thought about from the beginning when you want to document everything, or is that something like has evolved over time?
Yeah, I think that I've always been somebody that's just interested in the experience, whether it's good or bad. And so I'm definitely more drawn to sharing all of it. But I think when you get into the world of making content, it's really, really easy to only share the good things and to cut out the bad and to make it seem like you have this like perfect life. And, you know, everybody says like online isn't real. And I think that you also don't want to get on the internet and just like be like, this place was horrible. You know, everything was so bad about it. Like there is a level of like wanting to put your best foot forward. And I think there's like a delicate balance of being very truthful and also being optimistic. I think that's my big thing, is I'm extremely optimistic. I always see the glass half full. But I am willing to speak out when I think that something is like fundamentally wrong, or just like something that I personally disagree with. There's been times where I've been in countries that do not have equal, or aren't even close to having equal women's rights. And although that might be like a cultural thing for them, I still fundamentally think that women should have equal rights in every single country, regardless of where you're at in the world. So it's like this balance of believing what you believe as a human being, and then also feel like having to fit in and confine to the country's norms and regulations.
I think about all the things you've seen and learned along your travels. What would you say are some of the most important travel things you've learned so far that you can share with someone who wants to explore them more?
I think that the news and the media wants to tell you that the world is a really scary place, but I actually just fundamentally disagree. I think that humans are humans, and the average human wants to be good, do good, wants better for the world and for, you know, humanity as a whole. And the news is so quick to have a headline and whatever. And that, don't get me wrong, I know that bad things happen. I know that there's so many things in the world that we should fix and we should change. But I think there's an extreme difference between a country's politics and a country's people. And humans are inherently good. People are inherently good. And the world is, generally speaking, an extremely safe place. Like I said, I've been few places where I felt unsafe. And even when I was in those unsafe places, I never feared for like my life. It was just a matter of like, I could tell this wasn't the best place to be. But I think people get scared to travel. There's been so many times where I've told people that I'm going to a certain country and they literally beg me not to go. They're like, oh my gosh, but it's so unsafe, don't go there, whatever. And you go and it's totally fine. Like, so I think that there has to be a level of trusting your intuition, trusting your gut when you travel. But for the most part, you're probably going to be fine anywhere you want to travel.
Mhm. What would you say are the most common mistakes you see travelers doing that you would don't do this, help them to avoid this? What would that be?
On a surface level, people overpack. And I think that people want to be too prepared. I think one of the beauties of exploring the world is the unknown. That's why you're traveling, to go see something you've never seen before and to experience something you've never experienced. And if you do too much research, you kind of lose the magic of getting to explore something new and see something new, especially in the day and age of media. You can get on TikTok, you can get on Instagram, you can get on all these pages and almost already experience it through the videos of what other people are doing and how other people have experienced it. And it kind of sets the tone of how you're going to experience it, versus there's like a delicate balance of how much research to do to be prepared enough to feel confident enough, and then also still establish that, magic of exploring a new country and finding the things you've never found before. Like one of the best things is when you meet a local and they give you like the inside scoop of the best restaurant to go to. And you're like, I would have never found that if I wouldn't have met that person. You can't plan for everything. So rolling with the punches and not being over prepared.
What would you say of all the travels you've done so far? What has been the biggest travel mistake you've done of all your travels?
The biggest mistake. I don't know. I don't think I've really I don't think I've regretted too much of my travels. Truly, I think my biggest regret, it would come back to the content thing of not posting sooner, not posting more, and like just believing that like I do content because I want it, because I love it, not because I'm trying to make money from it or all of the things. Obviously, there's very positive things that come out of it. But when it comes to my biggest regret, I don't know if I have any, honestly. Not off the top of my head, which is a level of success in and of itself.
I understand. I'm thinking when you first started traveling, I'm thinking besides like just seeing the world and meeting new people, did you feel like you had like a deeper sense of purpose for the traveling? I'm thinking like this old phrase people can tell you sometime, traveling broadens the minds. I mean, thinking like, was your why and your purpose different back then? And would you say that has changed over time?
Yeah, I think that when I first started traveling, it was very for me. It was only for me. Like I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to see what was out there. And I think that I'm a very quantitative person. I run off of data. Like, so in my head, I was like, I want to collect all of the data that I can so that I can make the best decisions for my life moving forward. Like, how do I know that I want to live in Washington State or in California if I've never experienced anything else outside of that? So for me, it was very like, what do I want for my life, and trying to figure out my own dynamic of where I wanted to go. But I think as I started creating content, I realized I fundamentally believe that the world would be a better place if everybody had the opportunity to travel. I think that it makes you way more understanding. And I think it makes you realize that things are not weird, things are just different. And an example of that is when I was in Vietnam. I was doing the Ha Giang Loop, which is like the northern part of Vietnam. You can do it in like 3 days or 4 days, but basically you rent a motorbike and you literally travel the northern part of Vietnam, like up to the China border. And you can choose to do it with like a guide, but we just went rogue and did it by ourselves. And I was in this remote part of Vietnam, and there was this grandma that was like 85 years old, and she was hiking up probably like a 45-degree angled rice field with a giant backpack on her back full of like just freshly harvested rice. And I was like, her reality is like, that is like her normal. And that would be insane. Like if we had to switch places right in that moment, like my normal would be so uncomfortable for her and her normal would be so uncomfortable for me. And I think that that is the level of like understanding that you get when you travel, is like, things aren't weird. That's her normal. And it's okay that that's her normal. And it's okay that I don't want that to be my normal. You know what I mean? And so I think that travel just gives you this like experience of immersing yourself in you not being the comfortable one. You know, like when you choose to go to a different country, you're the outlier. You're the one that is in a foreign land, and you have to try to like see how you fit in with these people that have their normal day to day. And so I think that when it comes to a greater purpose, I realized that not everybody has access to travel, and it's not everybody's deepest passion, but it's mine. And so my content can bring a level of travel to people that don't have access to it, or that cannot, whether it's monetary or physical or whatever it might be. But I think my deeper level is that I really think that travel actually could solve the world's problems.
When you, given how much you travel, can you somewhere see like a difference between people who have traveled a lot and people who have not traveled a lot? Can you like can they understand things in a better way, in a deeper way, if you compare it to people who haven't traveled at all?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how comfortable people are with themselves. And I think that when you travel, it tests who you are as a person, because you go to a foreign country alone, or, you know, with one other person, all of a sudden you have to be super self-reflective of like, do I like this? Do I not like this? What do I want to do? So many times when you're with your friends or growing up or whatever it might be, you're constantly put in an environment where you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do based on the group or the surrounding that you're in? Versus when you go traveling, you have to ask yourself what you want. And I think that it makes you a lot more understanding of yourself. And I think that when you become really comfortable with yourself, you care less about what other people are doing. And so like, I think travel is the catalyst to creating that level of self-awareness and independence. But really it comes down to how confident are people in them themselves. Because when I've noticed in terms of travel, people that have traveled are a lot more go with the flow. They're a lot more, it's okay, you know, because everybody's missed a flight. Everybody has had if you've traveled, everybody has had a moment where you thought it was going to go one way and then it did not go that way. So it's like it inevitably creates this level of having to be flexible. And then there's just like a way less level of judgment towards anything really when you travel, I think.
Hypothetically, would you say that if you're a person that's very introvert, would you say that traveling alone would be a good thing for that person to become more extrovert?
I think that every single person is so different, and I'm very like, I'm not quick to put like I'm not quick to put a person in a box. I think that you could go abroad and you could be an introvert and you could experience travel as an introvert and still create the same like level of excitement. I don't think that you have to go out and meet new people and be interviewing people on the street or whatever it might be. The world is huge. There's different types of people everywhere in the world. And I think it depends on the type of intention that you're going for on a trip, that you can get any type of experience that you want. But there is a lot of studies into statistics to prove that when you travel, if you have an intention of like trying to learn something new or challenge yourself, travel is one of the best ways to do it, because you're taking yourself out of the environment that you are used to, and it forces you to want to try new things. Like they actually did a study where they asked people that went on just like a normal vacation, like a sit on the beach vacation. They actually found way a higher level of enjoyment of exercising when people were on vacation than when they were at home. They could do the same level of exercise at home and not get the same level of fulfillment as when they're abroad or when they go on a trip, because when you take yourself out of your environment, it makes you, it like rewires your brain to be like, oh, this is different. It gives you hope. Like, oh, I could choose to do something different. I'm already in this new environment. It kind of like wipes the slate clean and allows you to ask yourself, like, what do you actually want?
Interesting.
And that's been studied. So I think that's super interesting, going back to the data. Like, I think it's interesting that it's actually been studied that going on vacation and taking a travel trip is really, really good for your mental health if you have the intention of like what you want to get out of it.
Based on everything you've seen and experienced so far, could you see yourself living abroad someday?
Absolutely, I would love to. Like, short answer, yes. That would be the dream. I think that's one thing that if I had it my way, I would figure out a way to make it more accessible to be able to move abroad. I think with like visas and like all of the things, it's extremely difficult logistically and expensive to be able to move abroad. And so, short answer, yes, I would love to live abroad, like long term. But as for now, that's kind of also why I've always had the dream of living abroad. And I think that the level of full-time travel and slow traveling, where I would spend like a month in each place, that's kind of given me a glimpse of what it would be like to live abroad in the environment of being, just being on tourist visas.
How does your top 3 list look like right now, if you could do the move?
Oh, that's tough because it depends on like what I would be looking for. I think I would have to say one of the Scandinavian countries, just because I want to know what it's like to live in, like I said, my perception of the Scandinavian countries is they kind of have it figured out more or less. But I really don't like being cold. So that's a problem for me. I loved Australia. I think Australia is also great. Logistically, they speak English, so that would also be awesome. And then like in terms of just like saving money, I would totally live in like Thailand for a year or something like that.
Okay. When you do your travels, I mean, like before you go on them, how do you decide where you want to go? Like, how much research do you put into it before actually booking a trip?
I would like to say that this is not advice, but I put like the lowest amount of research in. I don't know if you've seen it, but I have a series where I went to Japan, and I literally booked my Japan trip 2 days before I left because I saw an inexpensive ticket and I was like, I should go. And then I went and I spent 9 days in Japan with literally zero research. So I have an entire series about that if anybody wants to go watch it. But and then when I went to Europe, I also kind of just like, I knew how long I wanted to be gone. And I kind of had like, okay, I want to start in Albania and I want to travel Eastern Europe. So I had a very, very bird's eye view of what kind of my intention was. But it wasn't until I was there and I was like, okay, well, maybe we should have the goal to be to go from Albania all the way to Finland and then kind of have it be like working all the way north. And so I would do more research than I did if I was giving advice, but for me personally, I don't do any research. And I think that also is kind of like the scatteredness of my content and what keeps you on your toes, for better or worse, is that you guys are experiencing it at the same time I'm experiencing it because I really haven't done much research.
Is that usually how you book your trips, like more spontaneous? Is that like also a good way to find the cheapest trips?
Yes. If you want to find the cheapest trips outside, generally speaking, especially for flights outside of holiday seasons, 2 weeks to a month for international travel is the cheapest time to find a flight, because you have to think about it as supply and demand. So like the airline knows that they're probably not going to, if they have a lot of tickets left over, they're probably not going to sell half of an airplane's full at full price a month before an international trip, because they know the consumer habits of the typical person. And so they're going to put them on sale to be like, it's such a good deal, you can't say no, which is how I made it to Japan. But But I think there's like, it kind of depends on like what the consumer wants. Like, do they want security? Then they're probably going to have to spend a bit more money to get that security and to have planning. But if you can be spontaneous, that's definitely how you're going to get the cheapest prices.
What are your thoughts about hotels, hostels? And do you also book that like this last minute, or you try to find that when you're at the location?
Well, because of the nature of my spontaneous travel, it kind of just inevitably came up that I would book it like 1 day or 2 days in advance. But I think that you could find better places if you know, when you get down to like a few days in advance, you're getting whatever's left over. So it might not be the best option, even if you're getting a really great price. But yeah, if you can be like 2 weeks in advance to book accommodation, you're probably going to get a decent price, generally speaking, again, outside of like holidays and peak times. But yeah, the way I book it is pretty like day before. But in terms of hostels, I think that I'm not a hostel person. I don't like them. I think the best ones was when I was in Japan, because you have like the little pods and they're all clean. But I think hostels are an amazing option for young people, especially, and for budget travelers, because you just can't beat, you know, $20 or $30 or euros for a night. But I have noticed that if you travel with even one other person, it's probably going to be a better deal to just get an inexpensive hotel or motel, because you're sharing that price with somebody, and then also you get your own bathroom. I don't like sharing a bathroom with people. And if it's I'm my main priority, a lot of my stuff, you can see that it's budget travel, but my main priority is actually the best value. Like, I don't mind spending more money if I'm going to get a better value for the money that I'm spending. And so I have found that if you travel with even more than one person, generally speaking, it will actually be a much better value to just book a hotel or to get, you know, an independent room within an accommodation. And I like that better anyway. So
I'm thinking for making everything easier on your travels. Since you started traveling up until today, has it been like a side goal or a main goal to try to find sponsors or anything like that to make things easier for you? Is that like a goal with all traveling?
that would always be the goal. I think that especially when the social media market is super competitive, and I'm starting to be able to get brand deals with the places that my platform is at. But I'm also really concerned with, and concern might be the wrong word, but I'm very mindful of the long-term goal and the long-term plan of my content. I'm not really interested in working with little kitschy, you know, like TikTok shop brands. You know, like I went to school for marketing, so I'm very aware of, you know, consumer behavior and, you know, branding and what that means. So I'm pretty, I'm willing to say no to money if it's not in the best interest of my platform, and also like what I'm bringing my audience. Like, I don't want to sell them something just so that I can make a buck. I want to make sure that I'm vetting something and making sure that I'm bringing the best possible options to the people that trust me and follow me.
Okay, if you're looking like a few years into the future, your platform's more grown. Are you thinking like you want to start your own like travel agency, or continue travel more deeper into countries? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that my biggest strength is that my biggest strength and my biggest weakness is that I don't plan super far in advance, and I kind of let it like go with the flow and see where things take me. Even if I had to look at where I am now 2 years ago, I would pinch myself at where I'm at. Like, I always wanted this to happen, but I didn't. It was always just kind of like, put in the work and see what happens. And I think that's my kind of like my motto. When I first started traveling, I had the concept of like, I'm young now, I should travel now. Like, I can sit at a desk when I'm 75 and pencil push. Like, I'll make money later. I've already learned that I can live off of a very small amount of money. So I'll work later. I'll have fun now, and I'll if I have to go to work later, I'll go to work later. But now I've created work for myself. But when it comes to like 2 years in the future, this is actually the first time I'm saying it out loud, but I am trying to build a travel app. So essentially it would help people make decisions faster and better for things that they want to do or places that they want to go. I know nothing about coding. I know nothing about anything. So if anything, me saying this is me manifesting it and putting it out there and seeing what happens. But I do think that my time when I was in Europe, this last time when I was traveling Eastern Europe, I thought that I was going to leave. I was going to go over there and I was going to make all this content and it was going to really like push my channel. And I was never going to have to worry about my content performing well ever again, because I was going to just make such great content that my stuff was going to blow up. And quite frankly, that just didn't happen. Like, it was some of the worst months on social media for me when I was traveling. And I don't know what the reason of that was, but I think what it made me really realize and be convicted in is that I want so much more than just making content. I think that content is the foundation of making anything easier. You know, if you can grow a platform, if you can grow a trusted audience and be authentic about the things that you're making, that's just a foundation for anything else. So I think that sky is the limit. And I've always thought that sky is the limit. And if somebody tells me that I can't do something, then I feel like I have to. I'm a little bit spiteful in that way. So really anything that comes my way, I'm so down to do it. But yeah, my goal as of now is that I'm trying to build a travel app, and I have a good idea. I just don't know how to code.
It's gonna go. It's gonna go well. It's gonna go well.
I think so. You know, if there's a will, there's a way, and I genuinely believe that.
I'm thinking in regards to your content. I'm thinking beyond just giving people advice on what's the best city or best place to eat, beyond the visual. What do you hope what do you want your audience to take away from your content? What's the message or feeling you want to leave with them after watching one of your videos or photos?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, my thing happens to be travel, but growing up like everybody, I was always told that I had a learning disability, that I was not at the level of my peers in reading. I always had to be in these special math classes. And so I always had to find a way to kind of get to the same goal in different ways. I wasn't making it at the same rate as my peers and as my friends. And so something from a very young age is I realized there was 110 different ways to get to the finish line. And just because society tells you that one way is the way to do it, that doesn't mean that there's, you know, the best inventions in the world have come from people being resilient and not taking no for an answer. And I think that like travel happens to be my thing, but if someone watches my content, I want them to feel inspired that whatever they want to do is enough. Like, if you feel passionate about it, nobody else's opinion matters. And so like, I would love for inspiration and creativity to be driven from watching my content, whether you want to travel the world like me or you want to, you know, go do whatever you want to do, but like your ideas are enough, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something, because the best, like I said, the best things in the world have come from people being resilient and saying, I'm not accepting your no. Like Steve Jobs, you know, dumb example, he's quoted all the time, but like they told him it was impossible to make a touch screen. They told him it was impossible to make a phone with one button. And now look at where the world is. Every single phone has no buttons almost, you know? So like, you just have to believe in yourself enough to want to try and not be afraid to fail, because if you want to do something that no one's ever done before, you're going to fail multiple times, but you have to just keep trying.
When it comes to support for your travel content and traveling, how has that been from friends, family, former co-workers? Have most of them support you, or has it been like a small clique that, what are you doing? Get a normal job and just go with it?
I think there's probably been talk behind my back of people wondering what I'm doing. I have a bit of a complicated relationship with my family, so I've never really cared what they thought of what I was doing. I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and I think that when I had to come out to my mom and she didn't accept me, that was such a line in the sand of like, okay, well, if like I know that I'm okay, I know that like there's nothing wrong with me. So just having like the person that's supposed to love you the most and be supportive of you the most to not be, anything else doesn't matter. Like nobody else's opinion matters. Like it only my opinion matters about what I want with my life. And I think another thing is like, if you're taking advice from somebody that has a life that you don't want to live, like they're giving you perspective and advice based on their experiences and where they've gotten, and they might be successful, but if it's not where you want to be, then like just be wary of the advice that you're willing to take from them. And so, yeah, I just think that like, if I had to give advice to anybody, go to therapy and get like really, really like convicted in who you are and figure out like what makes you tick and what makes you excited about waking up every single day, because genuinely that's all that matters. If you're happy day to day, nobody else's advice or nobody else's opinion matters. And when it comes to like my friends and family, I think that like they would, I think I have a pretty supportive friend group. Whether they thought that I was going to make it or not, I don't know. They never told me, but they're excited for me now.
And I'm also excited for you. You have my support at least.
that means a lot.
Okay. I'm thinking travel wise. You've been to a lot of countries, but you have a few left. What's next on your travel agenda?
The one that I want to go to the most is China. I think that especially from a US perspective, we're just like completely lied to about China. Obviously, again, going back to the political climate, like our politics don't necessarily align. And yet the US is on a lot of travel advisory lists and China isn't. So I think that should say a lot about things. And I just am like really intrigued by China. But I don't know if that's gonna be the trip that happens the quickest, but that is like top of my priority of wanting to make it happen.
Are you thinking about the travel all over China, a lot more like Hong Kong, Beijing?
I think it depends on, again, I haven't done a lot of research yet. That's actually one that I want to do really good research, because it does take visas and there is a lot more planning that has to go into the background, especially for a US passport holder. You have to apply for a visa and it has to be a specific amount of days. And so I think it depends on the type of visa that I qualify for, whether it's like there's like different levels. You can get like a 7-day, a 10-day, a 3-month. I think you can get like a 10-year visa that you can, anyway, depends on the visa type. And then I can kind of plan from there. But I would love to do some type of like rural China, and then obviously like the super techie, like internal part of China as well.
I'm thinking about you've done a lot of content, and I'm thinking about for the people who are viewing this and listening to this, where can I find you and your content?
More Monae, MORE.MONAEE, on TikTok and Instagram, and actually also YouTube. There, I do still have my old videos up. So if you want to go see like the very beginning days of my travel, when I started in 2021, I did slow travel. So I would go to a place and I would spend a month, especially because that was during COVID. So I was like staying within the confines of the COVID restrictions. I was getting, the PCR tests every single time I would move a country. So if you want to go see like the very beginning of my content, that's on YouTube, again at More Monae. But it's a little bit more entertaining on TikTok and Instagram at this point.
I understand. Mona, we've talked about a lot of things during this interview, but I'm thinking any more or last advice you want to give to people who want to do the same thing you're doing, or in general when it comes to travels?
I think that my message is less about travel. Everybody wants to travel, but I think like when it comes to overall like happiness and fulfillment in life, I really think it comes down to each individual person, and just figuring out, be willing to try new things. I think that's so important, whether you're trying a new food that you've never tried before, or I think if you've ever been able to have a thought about something in your body is telling you that you want to at least explore that. And so just like be inspired and be willing to try new things and see where it goes. You never know where like anything will take you. And I actually believe that anybody has the power to live the life that they want to live. And so if travel is your thing, then obviously I can give you some decently good advice about it. But ultimately, like, just decide what you want to do, figure out what your purpose is, and then just like go for it and see how it goes.
Sounds logical.
I know it's not that easy, but on a fundamental level, it kind of is, just try something new every day.
I understand. Mona, thank you a lot for doing this, and I wish you good luck with everything. And for everybody who's watching this and listening, please give Mona a follow, and wish you safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.